Once we are done with filling all the gaps with a JB Weld, it is now time to move on to puttying it up. We're going to be spraying the whole Buster Sword with this sprayable putty for a few reasons. To get rid of all the 3D printed layer lines, blending all the seams, and to help us with the sanding, because sanding 3D printed PLA plastic is much more difficult, mostly due to the fact that the plastic is much tougher than the putty. It's much better to use a sprayable putty over an epoxy resin, for example, since we can get a nice and even spread by spraying. And if you buy in bulk, you can save time and money. For example, for this Buster Sword I used around 4 of these cans, and if you buy around 10, you can get each can for around £3.50. So say we're using one of the cans and it's starting to run out of the sprayable putty inside and it's starting to spit. A good way to actually liquefy all that spitting, all that clumped up filler, is to put it in hot water. Be careful because you don't want it too boiling, you don't want to increase the pressure too much to the point that it actually explodes, so you want to be careful. But what this does, it kind of melts all the contents inside and gets it running easier. So what I do is I fill it up to just before the cap. But you may want to be careful because when it's running out, it's gonna start floating. And what you want to do, to prevent it from tipping over, just put something heavier on top. And leave this in for around 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. And then it should be nice and warm and the contents inside should be much more runny. And this goes for spray paint, for filler, anything that's in a can really that comes out of a nozzle. So it's a really good method of getting it runny.
Okay, a few things before we actually start spray painting. First of all, you want to make sure that you're well protected. You need a mask that protects your breathing very well, that is insulated around your face and is comfortable. You do not want this getting into your lungs, it won't be very healthy for you. So I do advise getting a good mask. I'm using a 3M full face mask. It's got 2 filters and I love it. I can actually breathe very well. It's comfortable and I can work with it for quite a reasonable time. Next thing that you want to make sure that you do is that you mask the material slot. Like you see here, I've got masking tape here. So when I actually spray it, none of the putty will go inside, only on the top layer. Because say for example we spray putty the inside of the material slot and then we spray paint it black, eventually all that movement, all that friction, removing the lid on and off is going to wear it off and it's going to reveal the putty underneath, which is not going to be very color consistent. So I do advise doing it this way, using masking tape on the back of the material slot, and this way it will be protected and the correct things will get sprayed. You also want to make sure you're in an area where you can get the surface dirty. I am in a loft, so this place, it doesn't matter too much if it gets a bit dirty. So I have a surface here and the surface at the back. If you want to keep track of how many cans you go through, you label them as I do. So for example, this is mine, so I've got label number 1. I'm doing someone else's. This guy's called Tommy, I've got number 1 on here. And someone else's, Becky, I've got number 1 here. So that's just, as I'm doing 3 swords at once. So just put them away because I'm doing mine first. So I've got here, and I've got a label on the handle just to identify which one's which. Not that this matters very much to anyone else, but yeah, I'm just walking through what I'm going to do. So, also keep in mind that trick where you warm it up under hot water, and then you want to shake it until you hear the rattling very nicely and even. Shake it for around 30 seconds. Once you hear it rattling consistently, you can start spraying it. I have the spray distance from the nozzle to the object around 1 foot away and start doing short bursts up and down. That's my preference, that's how I do it. Obviously it doesn't matter too much because this spray putty, that's got to get sanded. So perfect strokes do not matter very much on this. Keep in mind, I'm not a professional painter. I don't consider myself to be one. But this works for me very well and I get good results. If your hand starts to get tired, you can switch it, although keep in mind, if you're using your left hand, it might not go as neat as your right one does. Now you don't want to overload the coat because we don't want it dripping. The only time that you may want it dripping is when you want to fill a big seam that's got a slight hole in it. You should never build a puddle with spray paint, but this isn't paint, this is filler. So this is quite actually suitable for making a little puddle, so it's okay to do that. So if you do need to create a little puddle where it fills in a slot, you do have to have it on a flat surface, for example, not standing upright, but flat down. I believe that's enough for this layer, so I think that counts as one layer. So now I think we should stop it before it starts dripping. We don't want to over flood it unless, like I said, we want to fill a deep hole. But I believe this is fine now, so what you can do is just leave it for around an hour and then you can move on to the next layer or the other side. Or if you're brave enough, you can flip it around and do the other side straight away. So I'm actually going to do that. So let's see if we can turn it around without touching it. So this way we can work on the other side. This, you can see, is the filler, is the putty. This is why you want to work in an area that can get dusty and can get dirty, because it will build up with all of this. Let's continue. Don't worry about dirt. Again, you may want to clean some of the dirt off because you don't want paint, because you don't want sprayable putty going on top of some of that will just fall off. You should shake the can every minute or so of spraying just to keep the flow of the filler consistent. Okay, so I've got both the flat sides done, but keep in mind, I don't have this side done, so I'm gonna have to leave that till another time. In the meantime, I can just let it dry for around an hour and it'll be ready for another layer. This actually cures very quickly, so this is great for working quickly and